When two people have traumatic nervous systems or who haven't healed their heart or their nervous system, and they are in a relationship and neither of them know how to regulate their emotions, what tends to happen in that relationship if they don't know how to heal their hearts?
We tend to, I think, engage in cycles of endless conflict, of endless disconnection, of endless coping strategies that we've learned. We rely on the things that we do, whether it's, using substances or distracting ourselves by scrolling endlessly online. We are then the living byproduct. Sometimes it's in these explosive cycles of conflict. I call this patterning, that I think is pretty common in most relationships. I know Lolly and I, when we began our relationship now near a decade ago, we were very much in a dysfunctional patterning of what I call trauma bonding.
Really?
Absolutely.
What is trauma bonding?
So trauma bonding, again, I like to provide a more expansive definition than I think some could define it online, but it's all of those dysfunctional habits and patterns that, again, once kept us safe in childhood, that we continue to recreate, whether it's these cycles of explosive conflict, maybe that some of us are even defining as love and intensity and passion and all of the things
chemistry,
that we're looking for in chemistry, or the just dysfunctional habits and selves that we're playing, where we're just, one of the partners is always the caretaker of the other partner who's always in need of the care. And no matter what relationship you're in, you see yourself kind of engaging within that same dynamic. Or for me, the most prominent one is cycles of emotional disconnection. No matter who I was with, and I was always in a relationship. I was somewhat of a serial monogamist since I started dating when I was 16 years old. I was more or less always in a romantic partnership, definitely had friendships and, social engagements and things to do. But I was really the living embodiment, or the feeling embodiment, of alone in a crowded room.
Really?
And the number one complaint that would usually end to the demise of the relationship, because I would be so frustrated or resentful or so passive aggressively acting out that before I knew it, the relationship would end, was I don't feel emotionally connected.
Your partners would say that?
I would say that.
You would say that?
I would complain about not feeling emotionally connected, though I can share a story. My first boyfriend ever in high school, to this day, it sticks with me. When we broke up, we were nearing graduation. We were going to separate colleges very far away. And so we broke up on logistics of, it's college. We're going to break up. Though he also lodged a complaint, if you will, and he labeled me as being emotionally unavailable. And I was really struck by that, because I was like, me emotionally unavailable? What do you mean? I feel so loving. I felt in love with him. I was kind of devastated when he broke up with me. So I was like, that's unusual to hear. I think he's obviously wrong. Flash forward a couple years, I discovered I was attracted to women. So now I was like, oh, well, it's because I'm interested in women that I'm emotionally available. Of course I am. Flash forward even a couple years. I was in a psychoanalytic training program in Philadelphia right before I was licensed. And one of the aspects of the training was to sit in group therapy around a room of other analysts, where essentially for an hour and a half, we just analyze
each other.
We just analyze each other and our experiences with each other and our perceptions and how we feel interacting.
This was part of your training.
This was part of my training to get my license. I selected to go into that style of training because I thought it would be beneficial, and it was, though very difficult. And one of the things that I heard from a colleague there one time in the group, she decides to share her experience of me and described me as cold and aloof. And I'm like, okay, that is so interesting. Like, now you're reflecting back, this idea of me being distant, but I didn't have any language to understand. I still thought that she was a little bit inaccurate.
Right.
Though now looking
you don't really
back,
know me, yeah.
Looking back, I'm like, oh, this is making complete sense. The reason why I was so emotionally disconnected, that was real for me in my relationships. It was because I was emotionally disconnected from myself. Wow. So I wasn't attuned to how I was thinking or feeling. I wasn't sharing that. So of course I was creating a cycle of disconnection in my relationships. So as much as I wanted to not agree with those two assessments, I mean, a lot of ways they were quite accurate.
When did you get to a point where you said, okay, even though I don't think I'm emotionally disconnected, the pattern is showing up that I am. Others are letting me know I'm in breakdown, the relationships don't work, whatever disconnection I have from people, the pattern is following me. So, okay, I'm going to take a look at this seriously. What did you do to break that cycle? In your book, How to Be the Love You Seek, you talk about breaking cycles. How did you break that cycle? How did you know you had something to break and that you needed to find solutions or tools to improve that emotional connection as opposed to disconnection?
I started to look for myself because, yes, other people's feedback can be absolutely helpful, but I never would suggest that you just defer to what someone else assesses you to be or says of you. So I finally started to take it in. I started to say, okay, if I continue to hear this and feel this way from that conscious perspective, I will always kind of acknowledge consciousness or learning how to observe ourselves in the context of this conversation within our relationships to be that first point of action. So I started to look. I started to pay attention and to assess really simplistically, Nicole, how connected are you? How present are you in any given moment? And as I began to check in with myself throughout the day, whether or not you want to set an alarm on your phone to do it or put some Post-it notes on, wherever you walk by regularly, or maybe even set a designated time during the day, over morning coffee or when I'm reading the newspaper, this is going to be my moment to check in. And the more regularly I checked in with where my attention is, the more I noticed that it was a million miles away.
Really?
I could be in conversation with someone, and while I'm here and I'm being talked at, right, I'm thinking about maybe what I'm going to respond to next, or I'm just somewhere else entirely. And the more I checked in and noticed that disconnection, the more then I built on that consciousness step and began to, because there's always two steps to change. Me becoming aware that I'm disconnected was only half the journey. Then I had to begin to make that choice to reconnect with myself.
Wow.
To shift that focus of attention time and time again from the thoughts that, they were consumed in, or even just worrying about someone else. Am I more attuned to the person across from me than to how I feel being across from the person? And the more I kind of flexed that muscle, the more then I was able to reconnect with what my body was doing in any given moment.
How long do you think it took for you then to practice that, because it was probably most of your life where you had this type of emotional disconnection, what it sounds like as a safety mechanism to create safety from childhood, whatever it may have been that you were being safe from. So how long did it take for you to feel like, okay, I'm not having to think about this, it's more automatic. I am emotionally connected. Did it take months, years, or is it still something you have to focus on?
It's still a daily intention commitment conversation. What has become automatic is the awareness of the importance of checking in with myself consciously, though there are still moments as my stress level goes up, as I become busy with endless obligations. That overachiever conditioned self in me likes to prioritize all of the things that I have to do to show up in service of someone else. And that begins first thing in the morning when I know I have emails to answer. I know I have a whole membership that I can tend to. I know I have a book to edit or whatever it is that I'm working on. So it's a daily commitment to, instead of prioritizing all of the things we do or all the things I could do, to really create time beginning in the morning to attune to my physical body, to how it feels in any given moment, to giving it what it needs, whether it's movement or stretching or rest or, just a conscious moment to be with me. And there are moments when I'm not doing that, when I don't prioritize what I know I consciously, am benefited to prioritize, that I do find myself being much more detached, much more dissociated. It becomes still easy for me to travel down that older pathway.
Yeah.
So the choice even to go public when we did, it was probably more than a year ago now, was really born out of the commitment to be authentic to myself. Because at that time, Jen and I were regularly running the circle together. We had events where one of the events every month is a community check-in where very much we just have a discussion, and oftentimes